Parenting, OG style. When you are a grandparent, parenting your grandchildren. Parenting at a time when you thought that you could retire and take leisure trips was not in the plan. When you wanted to play bridge with the ladies and not Barbies with the little girls. You wanted to rest when you felt like it. Now all you can do is rest when the children are asleep or gone to school. You wonder where your grandson gets all of his energy as you have told him for the 100th time not to jump on the bed and to quit running in the house. He just stares at you and continues moving. You thought that you knew the meaning of being tired from working a long shift, but now you know what being exhausted is truly like due to the constant demands of raising your grandchildren. As one can see, there are various reasons that a grandparent may be raising a grandchild or several grandchildren. Later adulthood is supposed to be where you are retired, getting to relax. However, more grandparents are raising their grandchildren for various reasons. Some of these reasons include, but are not limited to, death of a parent or parents, parental substance use, incarceration, military deployment, child abuse and neglect, illness, poverty, divorce, and separation. The majority of grandparents whose grandchildren become involved in child protective services become a surrogate parent. This can be hard, especially when a grandparent is over 65 and the child who is under their care is less than 5. There are 5 major styles of grandparenting. Regarding children who have been removed from their parents, grandparents often become a surrogate parent in which they assume considerable caretaking responsibilities, usually because of the grandchildren's parents are working or because the mother is single and working. However, this can also be where the children have removed from the physical care of their parents. Other styles of grandparenting include fun seeker, distant figure, formal figure, and reservoir of family wisdom. Studies indicate that children being raised by grandparents have a higher prevalence of developmental delays, behavioral issues, and academic difficulties, suggesting that the combination of higher traumatic event exposure and poorer coping skills in children in non-parental care may hinder positive social development. Moreover, grandparents raising grandchildren often have less time for themselves and less time to spend with their partners and friends. This loss of social connection can be stressful and can contribute to depression and feelings of anger, loss, and grief. Warmth, value, and wisdom are positive traits that are provided. Society and social services are affected in that more families may be utilizing SNAP and Medicaid. Additional services such as therapy may be needed. Parenting grandchildren who have been exposed to parental substance use is a major issue within the United States. Parental substance use is the main reason why Child Protective Services remove children. The crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s and 90s, or today's opiate epidemic, have affected families. The Strengthening Families Act was set into law in September of 2014 under President Obama. This law states that the bill seeks to ensure that child welfare agencies are responsive to particular issues for children and youth in foster care or to those otherwise have contact with the child welfare system, including identifying and determining appropriate services for child sex trafficking victims, supporting normalcy for children in foster care, and improving opportunities for older children in foster care to establish permanent connections and make a successful transition to adulthood. In the cost and benefits of cash and services to kinship caregivers, Dortch et al. Noted that kinship care has provided an informal safety net, a form of family preservation that maintained community and cultural ties, facilitating parental visitation, and was less traumatic than placing children with strangers. Oftentimes, grandparents are considered kinship caregivers. As one can see, here are some statistics regarding grandparents raising their grandchildren in America. Across the United States, more than 13 million children are living in homes with their grandparents. This means that 2.5 million grandparents every day are taking on the responsibilities required to raise these children. This does not mean that there aren't any other relatives in the picture that are providing support, but there are 1 million kids today that have their grandparents as their sole parental influences while growing up. 55% of grandmothers who are maintaining a household to support their grandchildren are under the age of 55. Two-thirds of families that are maintained by at least one grandparent also include at least one of the parents of the grandchild. 2.7 million grandparents are raising grandchildren. This is according to 23 statistics on grandparents raising grandchildren found on the website of fathermatters.org. There are numerous impacts that grandparents deal with when raising grandchildren. Children are vulnerable and need the support of a loving adult who is capable and viable to provide care for them. Some impacts include physical and social, mental and emotional, and occupational and financial. Regarding physical and social, grandparents may have health issues that develop, such as diabetes, heart problems, cognitive issues, and respiratory issues. Grandparents also do not have time to socialize with their peers. Most of their time is spent taking care of the children's needs. Their peers may not be taking care of their own grandchildren and have more time to rest or do social activities. As one can see, the percentage of non-institutionalized persons with hypertension, which measures high blood pressure in or taking anti-hypertensive medications, women ages 65 to 74 are 74.3%, women ages 75 and over are 86.0%. The leading causes of death for people who are in their later adulthood include health disease, cancer, and COVID-19. In addition to the information provided, I will reflect on dementia as a safety risk factor when raising grandchildren is concerned. Dementia affects cognitive abilities, which include thinking and daily living skills. Cognitive and sensory changes include, but are not limited to memory loss, generally noticed by the near and dear ones, difficulty in communication, especially finding the right words to communicate, reduced ability to organize, plan, reason, or solve problems, and confusion and disorientation. Psychological changes include, but are not limited to, changes in personality and behavior, depression, anxiety, and mood swings. In regards to raising children, these symptoms can create safety concerns that may not be mitigated, resulting in children coming back into foster care. The additional stress of raising children may affect grandparents. Grandparents may be isolated from social events and peers. Depression may be experienced as the grandparent may have experienced tragedy that causes the children to be placed with him or her. Also, thinking that life was going to be a certain way, such as retirement, carefree and active, but has been changed where the grandparent lacks the freedom to be carefree and active, may cause anxiety and depression. According to the census.government website fact sheet, 3 in 4 adults aged 62 and over receive Social Security, with retirement as the most common reason for receiving Social Security. 10% of households receiving Social Security include at least one child under the age of 18. An adult may receive Social Security on behalf of an eligible child based on survivor or dependent status. A child may also live in a household with an adult who is eligible for Social Security themselves. Children often need clothes due to growth, expensive school supplies, and may have medical expenses not covered by Medicaid. The grandparents may have medical expenses not covered by Medicare or Medicaid, and other expenses that tap into the limited income. Food, housing, and transportation costs are rising. This creates additional concerns of poverty and being able to meet the needs of the children. Please watch the embedded video about grandparents raising grandchildren and the struggle during the pandemic. As you watch the video, feel the hurt and despair that these grandparents express when they are talking about raising their grandchildren due to the parents' overdose. There are several actions to create positive change from a micro level to a macro level. Self-care, which is a macro level, is how does the grandparent ensure their wellness so that they are able to meet the needs of the children. Community support would be considered a meso level. Services, these are services provided in the community to help the grandparents meet the needs of the children. And then at a macro level, we have social policy, such as Grandparents Raising Grandchildren Act and Strengthening Families Act. Self-care is always a good thing. Acknowledging your feelings is beneficial to the healing process. It's not healthy to bottle one's feelings up. One should take care of themselves by getting routine medical treatment, seeking counseling, and staying active. A grandparent should encourage open and honest communication based on the age and maturity level of the child. They should become knowledgeable regarding rights as a grandparent. There are different legal statuses if one has adoption status, permanent guardianship, or temporary guardianship. Certain states, such as Georgia, no longer establish temporary guardianship if the guardianship is awarded through Child Protective Services. In the community that I'm employed in for Child Protective Services, there are not any specialized services for grandparents who are raising grandchildren. One way to help would be to establish services and supports, would be to identify the needs through surveys, focus groups, and interviews with grandparents raising grandchildren. One can develop programs based on the surveys and focus groups. Regarding the macro level social policy, Congress passed the Supporting Grandparents Raising Grandchildren Act in 2018. The SGRG Act, which was signed into law in July of 2018, authorized the establishment of a council made up of grandparents who are raising grandchildren and representatives from federal agencies. The goals are awareness of and outreach to kin and grandparent caregivers, kin and grandparent caregiver engagement, services and supports for kinship families and grandfamilies, financial and workplace security for kin and grandparent caregivers, research data, and evidence-supported practices. The Strengthening Families Act was enacted on September the 29th of 2014. The goals of this act are to protect children from sex trafficking, enhance the adoption incentive program, enable children in care to participate in regular childhood activities, and fund new post-adoption and post-guardianship supports. Oftentimes, grandparents are the ones who become the kinship caregivers for these children. I've also included references for further knowledge. Thank you for listening to my presentation.